Welcome to another edition of Teach the Geek Interviews. My name is Neil Thompson. I am the founder of Teach the Geek. It's an online platform for science and engineering professionals. The first offering of the platform is a public speaking course called Teach the Geek to Speak. To learn more about it, you can go to teachthegeek.com. Again, that is teachthegeek.com. Today, my guest is Shailvi Wakhlu, and she is an expert in data analytics. And I must admit, I have no clue what data analytics means. So I will certainly be asking her about that, and also about public speaking, of course, because I like talking about public speaking. So welcome to Teach the Geek interview, Shailvi.
Thanks for having me, Neil.
So my first question is, from the bit of research I did on you, is I saw that you got a degree in computer engineering. So what was the motivation to get that degree?
Yeah, I consider myself a lifelong coder. I was fortunate enough to be exposed to programming at a very early age. So when I was 8 years old, my mom taught me how to write code, and so I pretty early on in my life knew that that's something that I enjoyed and that's something that I wanted to do more of. I didn't really know the difference between computer engineering and computer science, so I just picked one and rolled with it, and it ended up working out. I did really actually enjoy studying computer engineering in college.
Wow. So your mother taught you how to code. My mother can't even work her phone. I remember when I did engineering too, and I took a programming class my first year. That was probably my worst class. I didn't have the patience for it. So,
Yeah.
So kudos to you for, if your code doesn't, work, and you go back and fix it, and then hopefully it works the next time. And then I didn't have the patience for it to go back and look to see where the problems were. I just thought, man, let me just take the grade that I get and let me keep it pushing. Computer engineering wasn't for me. But we certainly do need your types out there. So it's great that you pushed through. Yeah, that's another thing. I didn't know the difference between computer engineering and computer science either. I used to think I was kind of foolish for not knowing the difference, but because you didn't know the difference either, I don't feel so bad anymore. So, so then you graduate from computer engineering, and then you have to get a job. So what type of work did you do when you came out of school?
So right out of school, I joined a company called Monster.com. They were the big job search engine back in the day. And I worked there as what would now be referred to as a full stack developer. And so I was basically programming. I was writing code in Perl, which was the language of choice in that company at that time. And yeah, I ended up actually working in that job for 6 years. And in the last year that I was working with that company, they offered me a different role. They said, how about you move to analytics? I had no idea what that meant either, but it sounded fun. So I rolled the dice with that as well. And, I've been in data ever since then.
Oh, wow. So you even went to analytics, not even because it was something you were interested in. It was just the company asked you to do it. Okay. That's interesting.
Pretty much. And I guess at that time I'd been with that company for such a long time, and I really trusted that company to sort of, they'd given me a lot of growth opportunities. I had the opportunity to be a tech lead. I moved 3 continents with that same company, as a matter of fact. So it was a long journey with that company. And when they suggested that, here's a role that we're currently thinking that we really need, and we see you and we think you have potential to help us in that direction. I did trust them with that, and I think it worked out for me. So no regrets there.
Oh, okay. So then, so now you're in data analytics. And as I mentioned in the intro, I have no clue what that means. And so what exactly is data analytics? And out of curiosity, does the definition of it change from company to company, or is it pretty standard?
Oh yeah, this is definitely a gripe with the industry, that the industry is not super consistent on how they sort of define what is data analytics, what is data science, what is machine learning. Like, all of them are, sort of related in different ways. So I guess I can at least describe what I do. My focus is always, there's data that exists in companies, or that should exist in companies, and you have to find a way to turn that data into something useful that can help you improve your products, improve your business, make smarter decisions, automate things that are hard to do, and reduce the amount of manual work. And all of that roughly comes under the umbrella of data science, as it's commonly referred to. And then there's certain parts of it, like there's the data engineering part of it, which is focused on one thing. There's analytics, there's machine learning, but the whole thing still comes under the umbrella of data science, which I think the industry is at least reconciled on that definition a little bit more than the individual pieces.
Okay. And then when it comes to, I guess, your roles in data analytics, how have they changed as the time gone on?
Oh yeah, it's changed a lot. So even if I refer back to my first role in analytics, which was with the first company that I worked for. So for example, we used to do experimentation there. So basically, experimentation is looking at something, a process or a product that your company is rolling out in as part of the software, and then saying, hey, if we made this minor change to it, how would that actually change our outcomes? So that's a pretty common way for companies at scale to sort of figure out ways of improving what their services are. And back in the day, like, it was a very manual process. Like, I used to for example, I would take user IDs, put them, like, even ones go in this direction, odd ones go in this direction. And it was a very, very manual process to sort of create this experimentation. And then I'd manually have to review the results, that how did this group perform and how did this group perform. And now, for example, that same thing is done by companies very commonly, but it's quite it's quite structured. Like, there are tools that help you decide who goes where, and help you parse through the results and figure out whether the outcome is something that works, that doesn't work, and things like that. So that's just one example of something that I've seen change so much. It's changed so much over the years, and it's pretty nice how mature the industry is and things like that.
So now that you talked about analytics, you mentioned data science. For all the people that I know that are data scientists, they all have PhDs. Is having a PhD required? So why do so many people have PhDs?
I can't answer the question why so many people have PhDs, but I would say this, that I don't think it's a requirement for the field at all. I in fact think, I do worry that the industry might not appear as inclusive, because there's this rough implication that you would need to have a very advanced degree to do this work. And I definitely don't agree with that. Like, also, I mean, I forget PhD, I don't even have a master's degree. So there are a lot of, I at least studied engineering in college, but I've had amazing colleagues who are boot camp graduates, who sort of taught themselves everything that there is to learn about data science. And I really admire and respect those people who sort of, like, figure out what they need to know to get into this industry. And so if there's any opportunity for me to sort of push away from that narrative that data science requires an advanced degree, like, I take that opportunity, because I really don't think that it does.
Okay, that's good to know. Well, at least for the people that it applies to, for sure.
Mhm.
The way that your career has progressed so far, what has been the biggest challenge so far, and how did you overcome it?
Yeah, I think, as far as challenges go, I feel that every year it's a new challenge of, what am I facing now that I'm trying to deal with. I would say that definitely something that I felt a lot was that I wasn't always sure whether I was heading in the right direction or not. As I called out, that some of my early sort of decisions felt a little bit like the roll of the dice. I didn't feel that it was things that I did intentionally. So I was always worried that I'm maybe not, is my career actually leading up to its logical conclusion. And I wasn't really sure of that. And part of that was because I just didn't feel that I had a whole lot of mentors who could actually help me, who could actually guide me or reassure me or pivot me if required. I kind of felt that it felt a little bit of a lonely process, because I was sort of taking my best guess as to what I'm supposed to do next, and just sort of figuring it out along the way. And I've definitely had some amazing, like I've been very lucky that I've had very, very good managers in my career. But with each manager, it was a relationship for a certain amount of time, and it didn't cut across different roles, different situations. So I never felt that continuity of having someone who kept kind of reassuring me that either you are on the right path, or you're wavering from what would take you to where you actually want to go. So I definitely thought that that was a big challenge that at least I experienced. And it was hard to sort of get through that.
So have you been able to find mentors since you've experienced these challenges?
Yeah, absolutely. So a couple of years back, I started being a little more intentional about my career. It was just, I don't know, maybe it was just getting older. At some point, I said, okay, I want to make sure I actually have a strategy, have a plan that holds me well. And as I talk to more people about it, the most common feedback, that even when talking to friends, or I went to a lot of meetups, a lot of conferences, people said that you need to find yourself a mentor. You need to find yourself someone who is invested in you, and is thinking about your career, who understands you as a person and understands sort of your unique challenges. So one of the things was that I did identify a few people who had been part of my career journey, either as managers or as sort of senior leaders in the places that I worked at. And then I started being very, very explicit with them that, hey, I need help in in navigating my career. I need more advice. I need more guidance. So in some ways, I was almost pushing to say, like, I need help, and I need you to, you know, if you think I'm a person worth betting on, like, I need you to invest in me. So it was an interesting thing. Like, it was definitely way outside my comfort zone. I'm not used to asking people you know to help me out like that. Like, that's not my personality. So it was definitely a struggle. But I was very grateful. Like, I think maybe also because there had started being a lot more conversations about the struggles that women in technology face. So I think a lot more people became more understanding of the fact that you know I just need a little bit more support for me to be able to figure out what to do next. So I think I'm very grateful for the people who sort of took that time, even if it was very small conversation, but just took that time to stay invested in making sure that I felt that I had support.
Interesting. I've never. Well, I can't say that I have a mentor in the sense that I went up to someone and asked them, "Can you be my mentor?" So maybe I go. There's certain people that I go to for just for their take on things every now and then. But I think you're right. I think it is beneficial, or at least helpful, to have someone who's maybe done things that you'd like to do, and you can give you advice and that kind of thing. So yeah, that's a really good that's a good point. It's not something I never thought of before. When it comes to the career that you want to have, what needs to happen for you to get to where you want to be?
um to be honest, in some ways I feel like I'm already where I want to be right now. Like, I don't think of it as this sort of, oh, there's this position in this type of company that I'm trying to get to. Like, it's really that at any given point of time, if I feel I'm in a position where I am doing work that I enjoy, and providing actual value to the growth of a company, enjoying the work that I do, like, all of that is good for me. So I'm not, there's I do actually think of it just as a journey. Like, there's not an end point that I'm trying to get to, at least as of now. Like, there's goals. Like, at any given point of time, I have a goal that, okay, here's what I want to get to next. And I don't know, is it a 1 year goal? Is it a 3 year goal? Is it a 5 year goal? That changes over periods of time. But I do think that I am where I want to be right now, and I'm pretty happy with that outcome for now.
Okay. So you mentioned the importance of having a mentor. Are you a mentor to anyone?
Yeah, I am actually. So, in fact, even right before we chatted, so I do mentor on a couple of different platforms. So there's one platform called Plato where it's uh, for people who are looking for mentors who've been engineering managers, and so that's something that I do on a weekly basis. So it rotates. There's some people who I mentor on a like I've mentored them more than once, and occasionally there's people who have a very specific problem that they're trying to deal with, and they're looking for an engineering leader who's dealt with a similar problem. Besides that, at least before the pandemic, I used to also mentor and coach students, like seventh grade students, for things like with their math homework and things like that. Now that thing has shifted because I'd been doing that for 3 years, and that was also something that I did on a weekly basis. So that thing has shifted right now. So I'm pivoting to more online forums, and I mentor a lot of women in tech. So there's a lot of different events that I've volunteered at. Grace Hopper being one of the largest ones, where I was a mentor. There were about 130 people who attended my sessions for mentoring on a very, very specific topic.
Hmm. When it comes, it gets me thinking about the difference between mentoring men and mentoring women. Do you think that there would be any kind of difference? And if so, what would it be?
Oh yeah, I mean, I have mentored women, and I have mentored men, and like even right now I continue to mentor both sides. And I think the type of problems that I would say show up in aggregate are pretty different. And so I do think that there is a lot of difference. I think eventually everybody gets to the same type of problems, but the initial problems that people face, especially early on in their career, or as they're making these transitions, that, oh, I'm trying to get to a more senior role, or I'm trying to figure out which path to take. I think in those situations, just based on opportunities, just based on stereotypes, or how women are perceived and men are perceived, the type of problems are actually pretty different in my opinion.
Oh, okay. Interesting. So when it comes to, I guess we can move on to public speaking. When was the moment did you realize that perhaps public speaking could really be beneficial to my career?
Yeah, I don't know if it was a moment, but like rather sort of a slow roll into that. I started noticing that this would be good for my career. So one context is that as I'm a person in data, a big part of my job is to focus on storytelling. People can look at data, and the data can tell them something, but unless you weave a compelling story behind it that actually motivates them to take action and do something, your influence is going to be very limited. So I think as I got more into analytics, like that's something that I noticed, that hey, it is important for me on my job to get better at the storytelling aspect. So with that, I started thinking about just getting better at presentations, just getting better at weaving a story, just getting better at even having a conversation which succinctly expresses what I want to say. And over a period of time, I realized that as I was trying to do that, the more I did it, the more I realized that I have long ways to go. Because as you sort of start doing something, initially you're like, oh yeah, I'll do this 2 3 times and I'll be great at it, and then you're like, oh no, this is this is a very long journey. So at some point, I started looking for more avenues to just flex my muscles a little bit more. And then I realized, oh wow, I have so many such a long distance to go. And as I started sort of just looking for more of these opportunities, I also realized the side effect of it was that people sat up and took notice when you have experienced public speaking, and people sort of just pay a little bit more attention to that, which I thought was actually beneficial for me in my career, just in terms of how seriously you were considered, being a person who'd had multiple sort of public speaking opportunities. So that's something that I try to be pretty intentional about. Like I try to have more opportunities, whether it's technical topics, non-technical topics, or even just banter, so to say. Like I try to have those opportunities very, very intentionally.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like the days of you just being, going from an engineer to going to data analytics because the company thought that you should, those days are gone. Everything's about intention now. Good for you.
Yeah, I would say that. I think that has been my theme for the last couple of years, that I'm very intentional about my work, my growth, and also my own happiness. I'm not leaving it to chance. I'm being very focused on it.
Yeah, you damn right about that for sure. And you know what? You're absolutely right about storytelling. Is definitely something that I didn't take into account because at least when it comes to technical presentations, I didn't think it was appropriate. But it's even more appropriate actually because that information can be quite dry and boring. So if you really want to keep people's attention, especially decision makers who determine whether things get done or not, you better tie it up in a story somehow. So yeah, good for you for realizing that at some point.
Yep.
So when it comes to public speaking, also, what kind of topics do you like to speak about?
Yeah, I've been trying to narrow down on my topics because, continuing with the theme of intentionality, things that are helpful for women in tech, because that's something that I support. That's something that I like to do. The other theme of things is also helping people in leadership and management. So sharing my experiences in that, finding avenues of ways that people can learn from the things that I went through, and hopefully not have to spend as much time on it.
All right. When it comes to public speaking, is that something you were always good at? And if not, what'd you do to get better at it?
Um, I would say that I was always interested in public speaking. Even as a child, I liked to get up on the stage with a mic, and I was also terrified of it at the same time. But it's still something that I like to try out. So it's been a mixed bag. I would say that I don't think I'm perfect at it. I'm very, very far from being perfect at it. So for me, it's a constant endeavor to try and get better at it. And the only way I know how to do that is to just keep practicing, just finding more opportunities, more sort of different formats. There's things that I know what I'm talking about already. There's things where I don't know exactly what I'm going to say. And I think changing up those situations with every opportunity, I feel I get a little bit better than I was yesterday, and that's been something that's at least worked for me so far.
Interesting. So you liked it, but you were terrified at the same time. I don't think I've ever heard anybody say that before. But okay, it works. But you know what? When it comes to getting better at public speaking, there's no such thing as perfection. There's just progression. You keep doing it, and you get better and better as you go along, and that's kind of the best that we could all hope for ourselves. And
Yeah.
also, when it comes to the presentations that you give, do you ever get nervous before them? And if so, how do you deal with your nerves?
Yeah, I get nervous all the time, and I think especially right before sort of the moment, because it's always a mix of, I don't 100% know what to expect. Every audience is a different audience. Every event or every sort of situation, it's a different thing. And there's a little bit of that last minute imposter syndrome that always kicks in 5 seconds before you're supposed to start talking, that why should I be talking about this? I'm not an expert. And I think for me, you know the general theme of the reminders that I give myself is, I'm not an expert on every topic that I talk about, but I'm also not claiming to be. I'm claiming to be a person who has had experiences in something that she believes other people may or may not benefit from, or at least I'm willing to share my experience. And if that is helpful to someone, great. If that inspires thought in someone, that's also fine. So I really reframe it as an opportunity to share my learnings and hopefully build connections with other people who also have their own learnings to share, that I'd like to hear about, that hopefully they're also sort of more willing to engage once they've heard my thoughts on a topic. And yeah, just if I feel that I have a good idea of the larger message that I'm trying to get across, then it also helps calm my nerves, because then it stops being about, oh, this is the exact sentence that I have to say, or this is the exact way I have to say it. I'm just trying to make sure that people get the bigger picture. And if I can do that, if I can get my passion across for a particular topic, that's good enough.
You know what? I think your reframing is the appropriate framing to have, because when it comes to even the people in the audience, sometimes we have our ideas of what they know, but we never really know. So you get up there and say what you're going to say, and I'm sure it'll resonate with somebody in the audience. Every time I go in and listen to a presentation, regardless of who the presenter is, I always have a pen and paper, just to make sure, just in case they say something that spark something in me, and then I write it down to make sure that I remember. It's very rare that I go to any kind of presentation where I think it's a waste of time. So the train of thought, or the thought you had, that when it comes to public speaking, is getting up there and not claiming to be an expert, but just talking about your experiences. I think it resonates with people, and also it's good to do, just because, as I said, you don't know what other people know, so you may very well be saying things that other people don't know. You just, sometimes we get in our head and think, well, what am I the one going up here to talk in front of people? Well, they're expecting to hear from you, especially after you are presented. They say
Yeah.
your name, you better get up there and say something.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So when it comes to your presentations, do you have a process for putting them together? And if so, what is it?
Yeah, so if it's a talk that actually involves me presenting slides, like there's sort of visual content attached to it as well. I My rough rule of thumb is every every 1 minute of speaking requires about like at least half an hour of work put in, sort of making sure that the content is crisp, that it's visually represented in a nice way, and that people have a clear takeaway from that situation. Just very much on the actual present, like the slides part, like on the actual, like what goes up on the screen. I think less is more. Have less things for people to focus on, so that they don't get distracted by a bunch of different words and different lines that are going from here to there on the screen. So I like to keep it as simple as possible. I think that's very different from people creating presentations where they're meant to be shared out, like where people are going to print them out and look at them later. Like that's a whole different thing, and that's a whole different way to plan for it. But for most talks, you want to keep the content simple. You want to keep people focused on you and what you're saying and your message, and everything in the background is just a visual aid for that situation.
Did you say that for 1 minute of speaking requires 1 hour of work?
I would say half an hour of
Oh,
work is
half an hour. Half
yeah,
an
half
hour.
an hour of work.
Damn, that's still a lot. Good God. After your presentations, people better be happy about them, or appreciative of them, considering the amount of work that you put into them. For sure. My God, that's a lot. Good for you. But you know what? I'm a big fan of what you said about slides being simple, because just like you said, if you have a whole bunch of stuff on the slides, people are likely going to be looking at the slides as opposed to listening to you. And ultimately, you're up there. We're doing public speaking, not public reading. So
Yeah, that's a great way of putting it.
yeah, for sure. A whole bunch of stuff on the slides, man. You could have just printed the slides, send them to me, and I could read them at my leisure. What the hell am I listening to you for? You definitely want people to listen. That's for sure.
Yeah.
So you mentioned a number of things that I think are great takeaways for becoming more effective in public speaking. Well, the most obvious one is you don't get better at it without doing it. So you can read all the books and listen to all the podcasts, all you want, watch all the videos. But if you don't actually get up there and do it, then you're not going to get better at it. So that was a good one. I really like the one you mentioned about the slides being simple. That's a big one for me too. And this whole 1 minute speaking for half a minute of work, good God. But that's a good one for the people that want to be really prepared. They want to be real thorough. So you get up there and people don't feel like they wasted their time listening to you speak. So that's a good one too. Are there any other tips that you'd like to provide about becoming more effective in public speaking?
Yeah, I think those sum up my bigger themes. And I think again, sort of reiterating on the fine, like just keep doing it to get better. I'd recommend that it's not even about a big talk or something. even something as simple as you getting up to present your team's work, or you talking about a colleague and all the contributions that they've had. Like, there are a lot of micro opportunities that help you hone in on how you speak and how you convey a message, that you can actually keep practicing as you go about your career. You can present, here's what we did in our volunteering group and here's the impact it had. Like, it's as long as you just keep finding those opportunities, I think there's plenty of places to practice.
Shelby, I just did the math. A 60-minute presentation requires 30 hours of preparation.
Yep.
Good Lord. That's almost a work week.
Yeah, but that's the thing, if you think about it, because it also includes the time that you spend thinking about, here's what I'm going to talk about, here's the content I want to cover, here's the here's what I hope people take away from it, and then actually putting together the slides, putting together your talk track, practicing it, like all of that. I think it does actually add up to about 30 hours of work. And yeah, maybe there's people who can do it faster than me, but at least that's the level at which I feel a little more comfortable, that I've done enough work for something that I really care about. And just to be clear, I wouldn't spend 30 hours of work for a work presentation that is 60 minutes. That's too much.
Wow. Anybody that's listening or watching that's looking for a speaker, get Shelby to do it. You know you're going to get your money's worth for sure. Wow, that's crazy. Anyway, so this has been real interesting talking to you, Shelby. How can people get in touch with you?
Yeah, so you can find me on Twitter. It's just Shailvi W at on Twitter. I'm pretty easy to find. And I also have a website, shailvi.com, and that's a good way to find me as well.
Wonderful. Everyone, that marks the end of another edition of Teach the Geek Interviews. My name is Neil Thompson. I am the founder of Teach the Geek. It is an online platform for science and engineering professionals. The first offering of the platform is Teach the Geek to Speak. It's a public speaking course, and you can find out about it at teachthegeek.com. Again, that's teachthegeek.com. Until next time, take care and stay safe. Thanks, Shelby.
Thanks, Steve. Bye.